Hey everybody, welcome to my Habs history series of videos, and in this video today I'm going to take a look at the Habs road to the 1993 Stanley Cup Championship, which was their last Stanley Cup win and their 24th overall, and also the last time that a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. So that was the 93 championship, and that's all right here at Talking Habs, the home of Habs hockey, where everything is dedicated to the Habs and all things hockey. If you're a Habs fan and you want to see more videos like this, head down there and subscribe and ring that notifications bell, and that's going to get you your daily fix of Bleu Blanc Rouge right here at Talking Habs. And while you're on the way down there to do that, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and any comments you may have in the comment section below about the video or about your memories of the series and of that year's playoffs, and even just that season, anything in the comment section down below. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my board in place and I'll be right back, although you probably won't even notice. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'll go over the stats, important stats for the team for that season. Then I'm going to we'll take a look at the series game by game, just go over the scores, and yeah, we'll start with that. Okay, so in the 92-93 season, it was 84 game schedule. So they played 84 games, which I don't remember how many years they did that, but they did that for a few. It was a 24-team league back then. And the defending champs this season were the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, as it turned out, got knocked out by the New York Islanders, which kind of eased the path to the Stanley Cup Finals for Montreal. So Montreal was 48-30-6. They had 102 points. They had scored 326 goals for. That was 9th in the league. And they gave up 280 goals, and they were tied for 7th in the league in that. They were 3rd in the Adams division and 4th in the Wales Conference. I didn't get their overall for the league, but it didn't matter. Their coach was Jacques Demers, and this was the first year that he was coach. The season before, well, in the offseason, they fired Pat Burns. He had made it to the second round of the playoffs 3 years in a row, but they lost in each of those years. So they changed coaches, and we had Jacques Demers in his first year. In the offseason, Brian Bellows and Vinny Damphousse were both acquired. Bellows would remain for 3 seasons and Damphousse for 7. And I do believe Damphousse at some point was a captain. I didn't check on that, and I should have. Let's see now. The leaders for stats leaders. Goals, 40 goals for Brian Bellows. And I had almost made a mistake here in writing that Brian Bellows, that was the last 40-goal season by a Montreal Canadien. But that was not the case, because the following season, Vinny Damphousse did it. And that, I believe, was the final time. Assist leader was Damphousse with 58. And points leader overall was Damphousse with 97, which means he had 39 goals. He wasn't that far off that year. Patrick Roy made 62 starts. He had 31 wins. It was not a great year for Patrick Roy. It was a struggling year for Patrick Roy. He had a 3.20 goals against and an 8.94 save percentage with only 2 shutouts. He did win the Conn Smythe Trophy in the playoffs. Goals, I don't know why I put that there. Goals leaders, Bellows had 40. Damphousse had 39. Kirk Muller, our current power play coach, had 37, and Stéphane Lebeau had 31. I believe he also had 80 points. It was a hell of a season as far as points, where you had these 4 guys all over 80 points, with Damfousse's 97. Bellows, I believe, had 88, and I believe Muller had 94. So we had a powerhouse team. Let's see now. Season streaks. This is how their season went as far as wins and up and down. So they started the season 16-5-3 to lead the division. They were first in the Adams. They went into a slump 8-9-2, where the Nordiques ended up passing them. They came back with a 17-4-1 streak, and that brought them right back into, they said when I was reading it, commanding lead in the Adams, but they finished the season 8-11-0, which dropped them down to 3rd. The Nordiques just above them, and the Bruins in 1st. In the playoffs, which we're going to get to, they played Quebec, which they won 4-2, 4 games to 2. Buffalo, they swept them 4 games to none. The Islanders, 4 games to 1. And against LA, 4-1. Now with the Islanders, I want to say that Pierre Turgeon was injured, and it might have made it a little easier against the Islanders. I'm not positive against that because for sure, because I think I might have seen his name, but there was a series where he was injured. Anyways, I could have that wrong. I don't know why that comes up, but there was a series where Dale Hunter hit him so hard, knocked him out of the series, and I believe out of the playoffs. But it might have been that he had already was able to come back by the Canadian series, because I think that's the year that Hunter hit him and injured him. So the Habs went 16-4, so they only needed 20 games to win the cup. And if you give me a second, I'm going to go over the individual series just quickly. All right, so the first series, round one, was against the Nordiques, and it didn't start out great against the Nordiques. In game one in Quebec, first 2 games in Quebec, because the Nordiques were ahead of us in the standings, it ended up 3-2 in overtime. So Montreal ended up playing 11 overtime games in these playoffs. They started out losing the first one, and that would be the only one they would lose. Goals were from Gilbert Dion and Brian Bellows, and for Quebec, Marty Rosinski, a power play goal. Joe Sakic and Scott Young. Montreal 38 shots to Quebec's 37. In nets, Patrick Roy and Ron Hextall on the other side. Game 2 was 4-1 for Quebec. Not looking good, losing the first 2 games of the series, but that often happens. First 2 games, they were on the road, and Montreal-Quebec rivalry made those games, especially, let's put it this way, in the regular season, it was like playoff games, and then you go into the playoffs, and it was like war. So you have to take that into account. So it was 4-1. Bellows got Montreal's only goal. For Quebec, it was Curtis Leschyshyn. I hated pronouncing his last name. Scott Young had 2 goals, and Claude Lapointe had 1. Shots on goal, Montreal 33, Quebec 38. So you can see, Montreal did outshoot them by 1. Okay, I thought they were outshot both games. Game 3 and 4, both in Montreal. Montreal got their first overtime win, 2-1. Muller with a power play goal, and Danfus with a power play goal in overtime. Montreal's power play was good in those days, and makes you wonder why Kirk Muller's having so much trouble. The guy played on a great power play. Should know. You'd think his power play would be better. Quebec's goal was scored by Matt Sundin. Shots on goal, Montreal 50 to Quebec's 35. They were making damn sure they were going to win that game. Game 4, it ended up 3-2 for Montreal. The goal scorers, Danfus had a power play goal. Gary Lehman and Benoit Brunet, the other goal scorers. For Quebec, Scott Young and Joe Sakic. Montreal outshot Quebec 37-27. So that makes it tied up, 2 games apiece. Game 5 was also in Quebec. My old cat, of course, I'm filming, wants to talk to you guys. Montreal won 5-4 in overtime. So that's second win in overtime of their record 10 straight wins. Goal scorers for Montreal were Mike Keane, Vinny Danfus, Eric Desjardins, Gilbert Dion, Kirk Muller, and he had the overtime winner. For Quebec, Andre Kovalenko, and he ended up coming here in the Patrick Roy trade after they moved to Colorado. Matt Sundin with a power play goal and another goal as well, and Owen Nolan with the 4th goal. Shots on goal for Montreal, 29, for Quebec 46. Now, in this game, in the second period, Patrick Roy took a shot off the shoulder, I believe, and he was removed from the game. So Andre Racicot, red light, Racicot came in, gave up 3 goals. In the third period, Patrick Roy was back and had a really good game, good showing in overtime, and was the star of the game and pulled it out. The final game against Quebec was in Montreal. In Game 6, Montreal won 6-2. No overtime needed there. Montreal goal scorers were Ed Ronan. I think it's Ed Ronan. DiPietro had a hat trick. Muller and Gilbert Dion with a power play goal. Quebec's goal scorers, I did not write them. How do you like that? I'm sorry about that, but didn't write them. It's too late to go look them up. Shots on goal for Montreal, 35. For Quebec, 30. Quebec pulled Hextall twice in that game. They put Stéphane Fizet. They pulled Fizet, put Hextall back. Like the Hextall started, pulled him for Fizet, pulled Fizet for Hextall, pulled Hextall for Fizet. Back and forth, back and forth. I was watching a video where I forget that the players were saying that they think that if they would have started Game 3 with Stéphane Fizet instead of Ron Hextall and gone all the way with Hextall, that the series might have been different. That's what they were saying. So glad that they left Ron Hextall, Mr. Emotional, who loses his temper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to the next series. Just give me a minute. All right, so in round 2, they faced the Buffalo Sabres. And against the Buffalo Sabres, it was not very difficult. It was a sweep, 4 games in a row. First game was in Montreal, and Montreal won 4-3. And I do believe all 4 games were 4-3, with 3 of them going to overtime. So the first game was 4-3. Montreal goal scorers: Benoit Brunet with a power play goal, Kirk Muller with a power play goal, DiPietro and Danfus. For Buffalo, Alexander Mogilny, Dale Hawerchuk with a power play goal, and Donald Odette chipping in with the 3rd goal. Shots on goal: Montreal 22 and Buffalo 35. In goal, Montreal, Patrick Roy. And for Buffalo, the legendary Grant Fuhr. Grant Fuhr in the day on, I don't know which video game it was, if it was Sega Genesis. There was some video game that when you had Grant Fuhr, he was amazing in that video game. Grant Fuhr was a good goaltender, but he wasn't great. In Edmonton, don't forget they were a powerhouse. Didn't matter almost how many goals he let in. They scored 1 more than that at least, But he was a good goaltender. Game 2, also in Montreal, was they were all 4-3. This one, they're in overtime, which would be their 3rd overtime win in a row. Montreal, Danfus with a power play goal, and he scored another one in the game. Muller with a power play goal. Carbonneau with the winner in overtime. Buffalo, Ken Sutton with the 1st goal. Pat LaFontaine with power play goal for the 2nd one. And Doug Bodger, power play goal for the 3rd one. Montreal outshot them Montreal was outshot 31-25. Game 3 was in Buffalo. Same score. In this one in overtime again for their 4th overtime win in a row. Because, yeah, that's not 4th, that is. Goal scorers: Kirk Muller got the 1st one. Danfus with a power play goal. Carbo with a shorthanded goal. And Gilbert Dion with an overtime goal. Pretty much the whole gambit. Regular goal, 5-on-5, power play goal, shorthanded goal, and 1 in overtime. Buffalo, Sutton with the 1st one, Bodger with a power play goal, and Dale Hawerchuk with the 3rd. Montreal 27 shots to Buffalo's 36. So you can see Montreal outshot all 3 games, still won. Game 4, Montreal again 4-3 in overtime. So game number 5 in overtime, or victory in overtime in a row. Scores for Montreal: Odeline chipping in, Lyle Odeline. Danfus, Kevin Haller with a power play goal, and Muller with the overtime winner. For Buffalo, Sutton, Hawerchuk with a power play goal, and Yuri Kimlev with the 3rd goal. Montreal, 30 shots to Buffalo's 40. I don't remember anything standing out in that series to talk about, but it was a pretty quick sweep of Buffalo, and we'll go to the next series. So just give me another second. All right, so next up was the New York Islanders, and what I said about Pierre Turgeon was wrong, because Turgeon got some goals in here. I think what I was talking about must have happened during the season. Anyways, if anybody out there remembers what happened, and if it's this year that Turgeon got injured by Dale Hunter, and I don't know where I'm coming up with that. I know it happened, I just don't remember exactly when. Okay, so the New York Islanders, Game 1 was in Montreal, and it ended up 4-1 for Montreal. The goal scorers were Dion, Leclerc with 2, and Benny Brunet with a power play goal. And for the Islanders, Ray Ferraro. Shots on goal: Montreal 28, the Islanders 21. In nets for this game, Patrick Roy. And for the Islanders, Glenn Healy. And then it's Mark Fitzpatrick filled in for him for a little bit. I don't know what happened there. I don't remember. And then I believe the rest of the way it's Healy and Patrick Roy. Game 2, Montreal 4, New York Islanders 3, and it's a double overtime this time. And I want to say 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's number 6. It took me a few minutes to start filming again. That's why I couldn't remember the number. Montreal Bellows. LeBeau got the overtime winner plus another goal. And DiPietro got a goal. The Islanders, Turgeon with a power play goal. Thomas, that's Steve Thomas. And David Volek. So shots on goal, 41 for Montreal, 42 for the Islanders. And like I said, Ron Healy in nets, and that's the rest of the way. Game 3, 2-1 Montreal, another overtime win. So that's seven overtime wins in a row. Vinny Danfus with the first goal. Carbo got the overtime goal. Turgeon got the goal for the Islanders. Shots on net, Montreal 23, Islanders 32. Game 4, also on the island, and this is the one that the Islanders win. So it's 4-1 for New York. DiPietro gets Montreal's only goal, and then the Islanders counter with Steve Thomas, Pat Flatley, Volek, and Benny Hogue got the empty netter. So there was an empty net goal there. Shots on goal for Montreal, 24. New York Islanders, 25. The deciding game in the series, Game 5, is in Montreal. Montreal wins pretty easily, 5-2. They get the first 5 goals, and then the Islanders get 2 meaningless goals at that point. But they get the first 5. Muller, Keane, Danfus, J.J. Daniel, and Bellows all score in the first. I think it was Muller and Keane in the first, and then Danfus, Daniel, and Bellows in the second. Steve Thomas and Benny Hogue get the goals for the Islanders. And the shots on goal, 33 for Montreal, 28 for the New York Islanders. So that's round 3 down, ready for round 4, Stanley Cup Finals against the LA Kings. Be right back with that. Okay, for the Stanley Cup Final, we have the LA Kings in town for Game 1. Patrick Roy and Kelly Rudy will go the whole way. There's no fill-ins at all here. And, yeah. I believe that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I would have written it here. Let me just see. There was a point, I think it was earlier in the one of the early ones, where Rasico came in and gave him 3 goals. Okay, Game 1, 4-1 for LA. It's the only game they're going to win. Don't forget that LA is coming off of a 7-game series against Toronto, so they won 7 games. So it's probably they have 2 days in between or a day in between. So they're still, their momentum is strong. They're still there. Montreal had almost a week off waiting for LA to finish their series. So Montreal's a little bit rusty and cold, and LA is hot, and they got the momentum, and it shows in Game 1. So Montreal's goal is Ed Ronan gets the first one. LA counters with Luc Robitaille getting 2 power play goals. Yari Curry and Gretzky into the empty net. Shots on goal, 32 for Montreal, 38 for LA. And that's all that's good for LA, because the next game is also Montreal. It's a 3-2 win for Montreal in overtime, and that is game number 8 in overtime, victory number 8 in a row. It's also the game of the McSorley illegal curve, and they call that with, anyways, I'll get to that. So Desjardins scores a power play goal. He scores 1, 2, and 3. So he scores all the goals, hat trick, and like I said, a power play goal. Countering for LA, Dave Taylor gets a shorthanded goal, and Pat Conacher. Shots on goal, 41 for Montreal, 24 for LA. Now I'll explain that. With I think about 1:45 or 1:48 to go in the third period, Montreal's down 2-1. They call check on McSorley's stick that it's an illegal curve. They check the stick, and it's an illegal curve. 2-minute penalty. So they've got to score on this penalty, or they're going to lose that game. LA's going to go up 2-0, and both of them are in Montreal. They got to go back to LA, down 2 games, not looking good. They need to win. They do. They score. Desjardins scores the power play goal and the winner in overtime. So it gets them to overtime, like I said, where Desjardins is able to score and keep the streak going. Because if it's not for that illegal stick call, LA might have won this series. Game 3 is in LA, and Montreal, again, another 4-3 overtime victory for overtime victory number 9. And that ties another team, and I don't remember offhand the team, maybe the Islanders. They tie somebody with 9 victories in a row, but this is done in 1 season, where the other team did it over 2 seasons. Montreal gets a power play goal from Bellows. Gilbert Dion gets a goal. Matt Schneider and John Leclerc gets his first of 2 overtime goals to win the game. Countering for LA, Luc Robitaille, Tony Granato, and Wayne Gretzky. Shots on goal, 36 for Montreal, 33 for LA. Game 4, the last of the overtime wins. Number 10, Montreal wins 3-2. This game is also in LA. Montreal scores Kirk Muller, Vinny Danfus on the power play. Montreal's power play was potent in those days. And John Leclerc, like I said, his second overtime victory. 2 games in a row he did it. LA, Mike Donnelly and Martin McSorley get the goals. McSorley's is a power play goal. Shots on goal, Montreal 39, LA 42. And that brings us down to Game 5 and the deciding game in the Stanley Cup Final. I just watched it, so it was a funny game. The first period was very fast-paced. I'm going to do a review on it. That's my next video. It was a very fast-paced game until the third period, where it was 4-1 Montreal, and you see LA just had nothing in the third period. So, Montreal goal scorers. DiPietro, I always want to call him Rocky DiPietro, and I think that was his nickname, Rocky DiPietro. So he had 2 goals, the first and the last one. Muller had a goal, and LeBeau had a power play goal. Martin McSorley kicked in for the only goal for LA. Shots on goal, Montreal 29, LA 19. And Montreal wins their 24th Stanley Cup and their final Stanley Cup in 20. They didn't win in the next 27 years up to now. And it's also the last Stanley Cup by a Canadian team up until now. So the last 27 years, no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. So there you go. There's my look at the road to the Stanley Cup for Montreal in 1993. My next video, if you're going to want, I'm going to do a review of the final game. So like I do my normal reviews, it's a long one too. It's a 4-page review of the final game, Stanley Cup winning game for Montreal in 1993. So hopefully you'll check that out. That's it for the video. If you'd like to give a thumbs up. While you're on the way down there to do that, subscribe, ring that notifications bell. That's also down there. And that'll get you your daily fix of Blue, Blanc, Rouge right here at Talking Habs. And thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out my next video. And peace out, y'all. Have a great one.